Latino support for Democrats shrinking in the last decade. A new NBC News and Telemundo poll finding that 54% of Latino voters prefer a Democrat-controlled Congress compared to 33% preferring Republicans. That's a 21-point gap, but that gap was a whopping 42 points when asked in October of 2012. Joining me now, former governor of Arkansas, former presidential candidate Mike Huckabee. Governor, always a pleasure to see you. What do you make of this? It's not surprising, but can Republicans close that gap even more?
Sure they can, and they do it by a couple of things. First of all, the economy. There's not a harder working group of people among us than the Hispanics. They just understand hard work, the American dream, and they resent this idea that we're going to turn into a socialist country where everybody ends up with the same stuff. They know it doesn't work. Many of them have escaped from places where it didn't work. And many others are multi-generational American citizens. In fact, most of them are. And the fact is they know that what is being shoved down their throats by the Democrats is nonsense. Open borders don't work. It really is an affront to the hardworking people who came across the border legally, paid the price to become American citizens, now are some of our very best citizens, and they resent that, the borders have just opened up for anyone to come in, whether it's for human trafficking, for bringing in drugs. They know that it's a destructive force because their families are affected. So I think we're going to see those numbers continue. The Democrats have grossly misread the Hispanic community. They don't seem to really understand what values are. The radical abortion policies of the Democrats are very offensive to very strong family-oriented, faith-based Hispanics as well.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Todd. Jump in.
That was exactly what I was thinking. You hit the three on the head there, Mr. Huckabee and Ms. McDowell. I would just add this. We've talked for the last couple of years during the Biden administration about this open border policies designed to bring in a steady stream of Democratic voters for here into perpetuity. But if those individuals share these same values, couldn't that strategy backfire splendidly against the Democrats?
It sure could, Todd. In fact, one of the reasons it's going to backfire is because the two groups of kinds of people who are coming across the border, some genuinely looking for the American dream. They truly want opportunity. They come to work hard. They come to play fair. They come to practice their faith. Those folks are more likely to vote like a growing number of native Hispanics in this country are, Republican. And then there are those who come in because they're trafficking. They're coming in for criminal activity and drugs and so on. When they come in, do you really think they want to vote at all? Right. They're not voters. Right. I mean, these are people that are going to hide. They're not going to go register with the government to do anything. So it really is a stupid strategy by the Democrats. But then again, watching them lately, stupid is as stupid does.
James Freeman brought this up as well last week, Governor, that a lot of these illegal migrants are coming from places like Venezuela or Cuba. And like I know indirectly someone who is here illegally from Cuba who managed to get his sibling in. He told his sibling in Cuba, if you can come through Mexico, boom, you will never be deported. And that's exactly what happened. But these individuals who are coming in from these countries, they've experienced the horrors of socialism and communism. And so that goes right to Todd's point that they're a natural, down the road, conservative voter, not a liberal voter.
Well, yeah, they're not as dumb as some of the people who are presenting themselves to be their great hope. The AOCs and the Rashida Tlaibs of the world and the Bernie Sanders of the world who are touting the values and the virtues of socialism. You know, these are people who've come from countries where an entire bucket of dollars in Venezuela wouldn't get you a couple of pieces of bread, by the way, that nothing would be in. The old statement of a wish sandwich, 2 pieces of bread, and you wish you had something in the middle of it. And that's all they know. And so they come to America not because they want to perpetuate socialism, but because they're escaping it.
I want to get your reaction to this. A former advisor to Bill Clinton says, despite what Hillary Clinton is saying publicly, she is setting her sights on 2024. Listen to this.
I see more and more signs that Hillary is going to run. And these are all signals that she's going to be the moderate candidate for president. She's going to say after the election, see, the left cost us the House and the Senate. And if we stay with the left-wing candidate in 24, we're going to lose the White House. And I'm the only one who will tack to the center and give us a chance at victory.
That was Dick Morris. This after Hillary's recent critiques of President Biden's open border policies. Governor Huckabee, I love how she's considered middle of the road for Democrats because they've moved so far left.
Well, remember, Hillary is the ultimate political chameleon. I'll be whatever you want me to be if you'll just let me be your nominee and let me be president. She's going to be 77 years old when the election is held in 2024. I'm not sure Democrats want to go back to someone who is in their late 70s. It hasn't worked out real well with Joe Biden. But Dick Morris may be right that she will present herself as the option. And I know Dick very well. He was my political consultant all through the 90s and the 2000s. He had worked for Democrats. He started working for Republicans. Then Bill Clinton hauled him back in 1996 to run his presidential reelection, successfully, by the way. Dick is a brilliant guy, and I don't typically doubt a lot of what he says. And he knows Hillary very well because he worked for the Clintons from the 70s all the way up until 1990. So he knows them well. I would say don't put your money against him on this one.
As you said, she tries to be anything and everything, except, as she said herself, I'm no Tammy Wynette, stand by my man. Except she was and still is, because she's still with, what's his face? Former president, by the way. I just have to bring that up. It's why women don't like her. That's why women don't like her, because she actually said that, and, well, that wasn't true. And don't ever denigrate Tammy Wynette.
Well, that's a very good point, especially for those of us who love country music. Never say anything unkind about Tammy Wynette or George Jones. Those are fighting words where I come from. Yes. Now, the fact is, Hillary's still got a big problem, because while a lot of women may champion her, there are a lot of women in this country who see Hillary and they say, you know, here is someone who can be whatever you want her to be, but she's also somebody who has never been able to grab the brass ring when it counted.
All right. What was the name of her book? What happened? What happened? She just still doesn't know, clearly. Thank you. Governor Mike Huckabee, great to see you, sir.